plague hit Florence in the spring of 1348. And when it was done, it had killed about half the population. One of the most famous descriptions that we have of that event was Giovanni Boccaccio's work in that from the Decameron, which was published in 1353, so shortly after the plagues. Decameron, is derived from the Greek word. It basically means 10 days, and at a very summary level, it's a collection of 100 fictional short stories told over 10 days by 10 people who have taken refuge from the plague in the Florentine countryside. Giovanni Boccaccio was born in or around Florence in 1313 and died there in 1375. And in his lifetime, he was a leading man of letters, was a close friend of Petrarch. And he wrote most of the Decameron between 1349 and 1352, so right after the plague. Interestingly, although we know his father was there, it's not sure if Boccaccio himself was in Florence during the plague. He may have been in, not too far away, Ravenna or Forli, and presumably witnessed it there. By the way, this discussion of the Decameron is based on the Decameron translation by G.H.McWilliam and his very engaging preface to it. The Decameron was a revolutionary work in that it was written in narrative prose fiction in the vernacular, in other words, the Florentine dialect. And Dante's Divine Comedy, also in the Florentine vernacular, had been published about 30 years prior, but it remained poetry. Among other honorifics, the Decameron is called the Human Comedy and sometimes called the Epic of Human Intelligence. And indeed, its 100 stories, or novellae as they're called, have three central themes: intelligence, love, and fortune. Now, for all the scholarship it engenders, I think anyone who reads the Decameron will recall the salacious nature of many of its stories. Indeed, Boccaccio states that he wrote the Decameron for ladies suffering the pangs of unrequited love, and he is offering comfort and advice to them. And incidentally, the indiscretions of the clergy did not escape his pen either. Many of the stories are funny, some of them are horrible, but they're all marked by a certain intelligence. I read the Decameron more than 40 years ago, and in reading it now, I'm struck by the degree in which the women play such active and clever roles in what would be viewed as their own infidelities. Now, keep in mind that at this time, daughters in a growing bourgeois class were marriageable at about age 15 and were often placed in marriages arranged with an eye toward furthering family interests. And indeed, in the Decameron stories, many of the women are trapped in loveless marriages. Okay, let's change the venue while we go into a description of the structure of the Decameron and the Decameron itself. As you can see, the Decameron is bookended by the Boccaccio's prologue and epilogue. In the epilogue in particular, he kind of defends the Decameron. We'll come back to that idea shortly. Then there are the 10 days of storytelling. The stories are connoted by a Roman numeral for the day, and then the order of the story of that day. So, for example, Roman numeral 2-7 is the story of Alatiel, and it's the 7th story of the second day. The first day is distinct. It's really sort of the first day of the storytelling. It covers some other days that precede that, but they're all within the capsule of what's considered to be the first day. It begins then with Boccaccio's now famous description of the plague in Florence and just, the horrors therein and somewhat the breakdown of social order. Then it moves to his description of the meeting of the women. So in the Decameron, there are the 10 are made of 7 women and 3 men. The women meet in the church of Santa Maria Novella, which is still there. If you know Florence, it's now right across from the train station. The Duomo, right, which is considered the main cathedral in Florence, was under construction at that time. Boccaccio gives the women, he describes them as ages 18 to 27, and gives them pseudonyms because for discretionary purposes. He's positing that when he's writing this, that that these women are still around and active in Florentine society. So he gives them these pseudonyms, as I said, to protect their identity. I mean, it's all fiction, but it's interesting artifice. Then at that point, the women assume the narrative. Boccaccio steps back, and Pomponea, who's really the leader of all of them, who's described as the oldest, which means that she's 27, recommends that they flee the city, and they agree. 3 men come into the cathedral, into the church. They are described as the youngest is 25. They're known by the women, and it's agreed then that the group of 10 will take refuge in the countryside. Then he goes and describes the escape from Florence and the setup in the countryside. The setup in the countryside is quite sumptuous and lush. So it's a very different environment than the horrors in Florence, which is not very far away. They don't go very far from the city, but far enough, I guess. Then we have the stories of the first day, and also on the first day they determine that every day there will be a king or queen who sort of rules that day. They also decide that there won't be any stories told on Friday or Saturday. So as I said, the first story is on a Thursday. Here's the entire structure of the Decameron. You'll note then that besides the first day, the fourth day is the only one whose structure is a little bit different. On that fourth day, Boccaccio gives what I describe as a preemptive defense of his work. He uses the artifice that the first 30 stories have been in circulation and they are being critiqued, and he is going to write a defense. Now, remember, what he's defending is to some extent the subject matter, but also the fact that this is narrative prose, which is very different. Then we have the stories of all the other days. At the end of the 10th day, they decide to return to Florence. The epilogue continues with some, if you will, kind of defense of the work. So that's how the Decameron is structured. The stories they're not very long. They're all kind of fun. You could read them, really individually if you just wanted to do that. The Decameron itself has spawned many other works of art. Here you see a painting from English painter John Waterhouse. Throughout the Renaissance, there were many paintings depicting scenes from individual stories within the Decameron. There was a movie made, Italian movie made in 1971. I did want to give an example of one story that I think is representative of, if you will, kind of the type of stories that you'll find in the Decameron. And it's the story of Alatiel, which I mentioned earlier, which is Roman numeral 2:7. Alatiel is a young and described as incredibly beautiful Saracen woman. She lives in Alexandria, Egypt, and is to be married to somebody in Spain. And on the way, a ship is wrecked, and over a 4-year period, she is with 9 separate men, all of whom meet horrible ends. And after the ordeal, she and somebody more or less concoct a story, And the upshot of which is that she does marry her fiance in Spain, and is credibly presented as a virgin. And the quote in the version that I like is this: that a kissed mouth loses no savor, but is renewed like the moon. Sublime. Mic drop. Thank you.